to understand the 6 realms not as some remote places, but to understand them, to sympathize with them, and to relate with them on a personal level. Because these are not only 6 physical places out there, but they also are in our minds. There are 6 states of mind, and we traverse from heaven to hell to human realms within our minds throughout the day. And we should be mindful of that. And that helps us to understand where we are and what remedies we can use to advance, to break out of that realm to achieve enlightenment. You look at the 6 realms, you see 6 Buddhas. Each Buddha has a remedy for each realm. For example, the Buddha here with the lute singing the song of impermanence to the heavens, we'll describe how that is. And then for the Asura, this Buddha here is holding a sword, a flaming sword. And then for the realms of animals, this Buddha is holding a book of knowledge. And for the realms of hell, this Buddha here is showering nectar, sweet dew, to cure the suffering. And then here in the realm of hungry ghosts, this Buddha is sprinkling food and drinks to satisfy their cravings. And then for human realms, this Buddha here is holding a bowl and a 3-ring staff. So we'll look into what those represent. In the words of the gods, this Buddha here does not give lectures, but he sings. He plays a lute like a guitar. He plays the melody of impermanence. The gods up in the heavens, they have long life, full of pleasure. And sometimes they forget that life is impermanent. They have forgotten that it was because their skillful karma that they attained the realms of heavens. And so when they have exhausted their merits, they slide down to the lower realms and face suffering, and it continues. And so this Buddha is playing this melody of impermanence to remind them to not pursue meaningless distractions, but to think about the Dharma. But they never do. That's why the Buddha is reminding them. And sometimes we're in that state. When we're so happy, things go well, we don't think about impermanence. We don't think that we could fall someday. When we're in a state of ecstatic enjoyment, we don't think about those things. We don't think about enlightenment. And we don't think that there is still a long way for us to go. We feel satisfied. We feel full of ourselves. When we look at this picture, we should remind ourselves that when things go smoothly, that we should not let that kind of thinking consume us, but to remind ourselves of impermanence, that things can change at any time. Our merits can be depleted at any time without our knowing. And this prolonged happiness can be spiritually dangerous. Happy and contented all the time, no problems, no obstacles, self-satisfied, it will lead to complacence and even carelessness. And we forget that we are mortal, life is short and time is precious. Even in meditative bliss, we should also remind ourselves that things are impermanent and that things are transitory and that we are in a mundane world and nothing special. And that we should continue to pursue the state of the transcendental. And then the War of Asuras. The Buddha in this world holds a sword, the sword of transcendental wisdom. In a way, when there is a lot of passion, Asuras have a lot of passion to pursue their desires. And this passion, if you can switch it the other way to pursue the transcendental, then you can become successful easily. In this world, if we don't have passion, we don't have the drive, we will not be successful. We can easily give up. What we can learn from here is that we should maintain that drive if we want to continue to make progress. We should not stop the aspiration. We can continue to nourish the drive. But in this case, the Asuras, they have it the wrong way. They have a lot of drive, a lot of passion, but it was their own egoistic drive. And so the sword there is to cut through their delusion and to end their jealousy. It is their jealousy with the gods that they suffer. They have a lot of merits, but they do not appreciate their merits. They live in beautiful palaces, but they don't appreciate what they have. when we are full of happiness and we don't appreciate what we have, but we look at our neighbors and we envy their happiness, then we are in the state of Asuras, demigods. And then there is the world of hungry ghosts. And the Buddha there is showering them with food and drinks to alleviate their sufferings so that they can actually consume. So what we can learn from here is when we face with somebody who is suffering, we should not offer the Dharma to them, but to alleviate their suffering first. And that requires wisdom. We're making this personal connection. What is it that they need? Do they need our words of wisdoms now, or do they need our ears to listen to them? What do they need? Do they need us to talk, or do they need us to listen? Do they need to be sent away with a book for them to read, or do they need our company? So the Buddha, because he has wisdoms, instead of giving lectures, instead of playing the lute, instead of holding a sword, he showers food and drinks to actually satisfy their hunger. What this means to us is that in a state of our neurotic desire, we should get back to reality, get back to the objective of our desire. There's nothing wrong with desire, but we should understand why we have that desire. So getting back to the present moment and getting back to that objective, why do we have that desire? And can it be satisfied? And do we really need it? Where is it coming from? Either give our desire its proper satisfaction if it's possible, or if it is inappropriate or unskillful, then we do our best to let go of it. We have to understand some desire, if it's proper, just satisfy it and move on. Others, we should do our best to eliminate. In the realms of hell, the smoke-colored Buddha regales the beings in hell with nectar to alleviate their suffering. So the hell beings endure unimaginable suffering for eons of time, and the Buddha showers them with nectar for them to achieve enlightenment. There are two interpretations. One is that in a state of intense mental suffering, in other words, when you're way down, there's nowhere but to go up. Instead of giving them food, the Buddha gives them nectar, which is synonymous for enlightenment. But the Buddha gives the beings in hell not just nectar, but nirvana. In the state of intense suffering, the next step is to gain enlightenment. There is some affinity between supremely negative and supremely positive. In other words, that drive, you can switch it the other way and you can achieve your goal. And then in the words of the animals, the Buddha shows the animals a book, the book of knowledge. In the state of barbarism and savagery, the next step is to become civilized, learn about arts and sciences and cultures of mankind. The reason for this book is because it's very difficult to go from a barbaric state straight into a life of spiritual development. So there needs to be some intermediate steps, and that is to learn about arts and sciences and culture. So that's why Buddhism is very accommodating. It doesn't take over when Buddhism is spread to other countries. It does not take over the culture, but it allows the culture to grow with Buddhism and allow Buddhism to grow with the culture. That's why we see in different cultures, they have different ways of illustrating Buddha statues. For example, making Buddha statues, they look differently. They look very cultural. And then finally, the world of human beings. There's a begging bowl and 3-ring staff. In a truly human state, the next step is to devote ourselves wholeheartedly to the task of spiritual development. Once we have reached the truly human state, this should be our main interest in life, is how to grow. Not only physically, mentally, but spiritually. It brings meaning to spiritual development. Not only we have a good, happy life and in a good mental state, but we should also look for spiritual development. The message here is very clear that in the human state that it is most suitable for spiritual development. So what we have talked about here is that whatever states that we're in, we have different means of getting out of it and to transcend and to achieve enlightenment. We traverse the 6 realms throughout the day. And depend on where we are, by looking at this picture, that it helps us to understand what remedies to use.